Do you sometimes find yourself getting in your own way? Well, Steve Margeotes is back with us. He's a founder and executive director of Main Street Counseling Center, here to give us a boost of self-confidence. Good morning, Steve.
Brian, how are you?
Thanks for coming back and joining us.
Thank you.
This is obviously a common thing. People do things to get in their own way. How do we avoid that?
All the time. I think you got to be your best friend. And I think that's really hard to do when there's so much pressure from friends and family and employees and bosses to be a certain way. You have to be your own best friend.
Are we perhaps too caught up in being our own biggest critic? I've got to do this. This has got to be straight. This is that kind of thing?
Totally. You're always worrying about outside acceptance, outside approval. And when that happens, you start veering off. What does this person want me to be? What does this person want me to be? What do you want to be? The confidence has to come from within. And you're going to rock some boats, but it's better to be your own best friend.
And there's a reason we're talking about this, because this affects a lot of people and their ability to do what they'd like to do in life.
All the time. In relationships, in parenting, in jobs. You got to go out there and you have to be assertive and you have to be self-assured. And if you're not, it's going to come across that way.
So it's just a matter of confidence?
It's a matter of confidence, but you got to have self-belief. I think self-confidence is self-belief. Do you believe in yourself? Mm-hmm. If you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody else believe in you?
Right. Easy to say, but hard to do?
Absolutely. Because there's pressure to be certain things to certain people. Part of that's family dynamics. What were you growing up? You know, the star, the black sheep, the middle child who was a non-entity. But those roles have to be broken. You might have been the star in the family growing up. You're not the star now. Mm-hmm. No, and if you were the black sheep back then, it doesn't mean you're in that role now. So it depends on what you want to be. And it's extremely hard. But you know that this isn't working being what other people want you to be.
I would imagine it's tougher when you've been the star and you're not, versus not being the star and now you are.
That's right, because you like that limelight, you like that certain amount of success, but now this is a whole different arena, you know, from being a kid to being a teenager to being an adult. It's different, and you have to adapt, and I think that's one of the keys to confidence, is being able to adapt to the dynamics and to the environment.
So how do we do that? What's the first step for someone who really has to make that internal change?
You got to be aware of what pushes your buttons. You got to be aware of what you are with other people, and you have to be comfortable with that. Feelings don't lie. If there's an exchange that's positive, then it's probably positive. But if you're walking away from any type of dynamic and it doesn't feel good, then it isn't good. It's not good for you. And so self-awareness is really key.
So if you're in a situation and you see something that's not going the way you want and you're about to walk away, which is what you might usually do, how do you make that change, that key element that you say, wait a minute, I'm going to do this differently?
I think you have to react differently. I think if you react differently, you're going to have a different end result. And I think that's the key. And that's risky, and that takes a lot of courage to interact with someone differently. It's not just confronting that person, it's your ability to react different to the dynamic. You react different to the dynamic, you're going to have an end result to that dynamic.
So you have to really begin to observe yourself before you make the change.
Yeah, and that has to happen also before you go into a situation. Even if it's a situation over and over again with family. You know, you're going to a party, you're going to a gathering. Well, what are your expectations? And can you see people realistically? I think that's another important thing.
So let's look at a specific example. Somebody that I deal with in my life is always putting me down. And because they're family or I respect them, I kind of just go, okay, maybe it's your father or an uncle or an older member of the family. How do you change that behavior?
First of all, don't believe it. Because they put you down doesn't mean you're down. If they think less of you, that doesn't mean you are less than. I think that's the key thing. When people are verbalizing these judgments and you believe them, then you're doomed. So they could say it, but them saying it and you believing it are two different things.
So then you got to go, Uncle Joe, that's baloney.
That's right. It's false. It's not accurate. I think that's the key thing.
But that's got to be very tough for people who've lived years and years and years with that same reaction to people. Is this something that you got to go to a professional to do, or you practice with your family, or what do you suggest?
Brian, all that. Practice with your family, read, be aware of who you are with other people. I think that's one of the key things. And it's extremely hard. But you know what's equally hard? Accepting that role. And accepting that put down from that uncle or that father, and that's just the way it is. Well, it doesn't just have to be that way. Reacting differently to environments and people is a significant change that really is underrated.
You know, sometimes we hear about adults later in life, they're in their 40s or 50s, and they snap. This has been going on for years, and finally they snap. How do you address this at a younger time without being disrespectful or haughty?
I think you have to verbalize it. You don't have to blow them out of the water, but I think you have to verbalize it, and you have to be aware of what they want you to be, so that when you get to 40 and 50 and you don't have coping skills anymore and you do snap, this is what you want to prevent at 20 and 30. You know, that message of, they're locking you into a specific role that's incredibly rigid, and that's what you want to break out of.
All right, Steve, always a pleasure. Very
Thank you.
insightful. We'll look to see you again.
Thank you. Nice being here.